Hi everyone, this is Terry from terryscraftroom.com. Today we are going to make these gorgeous cards, or one of them anyway. And I'll show you a couple of not new techniques, but a technique for sponging to get a nice smooth sponging layer. Let's get started. So for this technique, it's a good idea to have a piece of scrap paper, and it's also a good idea to have wipes around, wipes close by. So the first thing we want to do, because this will take a little bit to dry, is we're going to do some glycerin sponging. And if you've never done glycerin sponging, it's just like regular sponging, but it gives you a nice smooth finish. So what I'm doing is I'm taking one of my acrylic blocks and I'm inking it up, just like this, okay, with my ink pad. Then I'm taking some regular glycerin. I just bought it at Walmart, and I put 3 drops there on the ink pad, or on the acrylic pad. So now I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to really smush the glycerin into it, and that's a technical term. And then I'm going to pick up some of the ink. And I want to really work that ink and glycerin into the sponge. Now when you sponge, let me make sure I don't have any ink on my fingers to transfer onto my paper. And that's why you need the baby wipes close by. So when you sponge, you always want to start off the paper. Let me zoom in a little bit so you're going to be able to see this a little bit better. And with glycerin sponging, it's no different. So you always start off your paper and then move on to your paper. And you can see the ink will move around a lot more than just regular ink sponging or without the glycerin. So I'm going to want to sponge about halfway on my piece of paper, my Whisper White here. And then I'm just kind of feathering this edge. There we go. I want to make this back edge real deep and a real rich color. And then let it bleed into a kind of an ombre effect here. Okay, so there's my, and you can see it's still wet. See how shiny it is? So we're going to set that aside and work on another part of our project here. Now to clean up this block, take your baby wipe and it just wipes off. Just like that. And again, make sure you don't have any ink on your fingers that will transfer. And now we're going to take our scrap piece and throw it away, and now our work surface is clean and we don't have ink transferring onto our other pieces of our project. So that's a little tip there too. So we are using Your Friendship is a Blessing from the So Sentimental stamp set, and we're going to use, I believe it's the third one down of the rectangular cutouts for our sentiment. And then we're also using this stamp right here from the Floral Essence stamp set. And you can see I've used this stamp set a lot, but we're using this one. And we're using the coordinating punch that goes with it, the perennial flower punch. So let me get some scrap paper here. We need to get a Stampin' Pierce mat under our scrap paper. And the reason I'm doing that is because we're using a photopolymer stamp. With the photopolymer stamps, they don't have this rubber layer that the red rubber stamps do. And so you need to get a better image for that. Use a rubber or a Stampin' Pierce pad underneath it, and you'll get a better image when you stamp. Okay, so we're using Blackberry Bliss here, and we're going to stamp. And with this stamp, you see you only get 3 petals. It's meant to layer, so you need to stamp it twice and punch it out twice to get the layers that you need for a flower. So here we're going to punch 1, and punch 2, there we go. Let's set that aside for now. So there's our flower, and now we're going to take some Wink of Stella, which is just a glitter pen, and I'm going to take and color the flower with the Wink of Stella. Now this Blackberry Bliss ink, I know that it will blend. See how that's blending? See how when I'm coloring with the Wink of Stella, that's kind of smearing that ink out? That's what I want. So I'm coloring with the ink that's already on the stamp, and I'm using the Wink of Stella, the glitter pen, to pull that ink just a little bit across the petals just to give it a little bit of color. And then let's just put some glitter in the center there. And I'm going to do the same thing with this other one. Now some of the colors will blend or bleed more than others. And as soon as I finish this one, I'll show you. So you can see how much the Blackberry Bliss bleeds. But see this card here? The Night of Navy doesn't bleed a whole lot. And neither does the Bermuda Bay. But it's enough just to give it a little bit of color on the flower. Okay. So now we're going to finish making our flower. So we need to round the petals with our bone folder. And then a lot of people just stop right here, which is fine. But I like to, especially with this kind of a flower or the daisies, take and bend it up. So if you stop right here, your flower is all bent back, like so. But if you do the second step and you bend the petals up, see how they bend up? That's just a little tip on flower making. There we go. And we're going to put the 2 levels together, and there's your our flower. There we go. And with stuff like this, I like, you can use a glue dot. I like to use wet glue because, as you saw, I needed a little bit of an adjustment when I made the flower, and so I have a couple seconds to move my flower around to continue to make it. Now the next step is we need some leaves, and so we're going to use the leaf punch, which is retiring in June, So if you want to get that, you need to get it quickly. And if you'd like to, go out to my website at terryscraftroom.com, and there's a catalog online out there, and it will take you to a shop with me page, and you can go out and buy the leaf punch before it retires. This Stampin' Pierce mat is also retiring in June. So, okay, so we've got those ready. Let's get our saying ready. So we're using "Your friendship is a blessing." And let's get our ink in here. Now this, you can see how crooked I stamped that. This is why I always, with the red rubber stamps, you always stamp first and cut out afterwards. Because even if you're crooked, you can always cut it out like that at an angle, and it will look straight. Okay, so I'm going to run this through my Big Shot. And through the magic of video, here I have it. Okay. Now, with this one, we can come back to it. It's dry. And you can see it's not quite as shiny. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to use the Parisian Flourish 3D embossing folder. Okay. We're going to lay this in here like this. And since this is a 3D embossing folder, the first step you need to do is you want to spray it with a little bit of water. You don't want it to be soaking wet, but just a little bit wet. And then I'm gonna come over here and run this through my Big Shot real quick. And there we go. And there we have our embossed image. The reason you put a little water on it is because with these 3Ds, sometimes they push so much embossing in that it will crack your paper. Whereas if you put just a spritz of water on it, it doesn't crack the paper. So there's another little tip. Okay, we need to stamp our inside, and then we can start assembling our card. So the inside of the card, I'm just going to take my flower again. Oops, I got lucky that time. And see how I stamped it that way. Now I'm going to stamp it the other way so that the petals are offset. And there we go. And there's our full flower. So you can do it both ways, both by punching it out and stamping one and then one and punching each piece out and layering it, or you can stamp right on top of the other one. Now this one, again, I'm going to use the Wink of Stella just to hit the petals a little bit and give it a little sparkle. And then I'm going to Wink of Stella the center. Now when you do this, I'm going to show you here, when you do this, look at the tip of my Wink of Stella. It's got ink on it. So to clean that off, just take it, and now it's clean. Okay, so let's assemble. Now I'm going to take about 10 inches of this polka dot toile ribbon right here. It is very vanilla, but it's such a light very vanilla that it doesn't really show the difference. So I'm going to put a little bit of tape down and just tape him right there. Oh, let's put this on our mat real quick. Just like so. Okay. Now we're going to take our sentiment, and I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool, and this is such a handy tool. You can use it for lots of things, but I've recently discovered you can use it to get these little top papers off on the dimensionals. So I'm just going to place this just like that over my toile, and then the last part for the front of the card is the flower and its leaves. So I'm going to kind of figure out where I want the leaves, and then I'm going to glue the leaves down. Like that. I'm going to glue the flower down. Like that. There we go. Now we've got our card base, which is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.5. I live in Colorado where it's very dry, and that's why you will always see me using more adhesive than some other demonstrators, because in the humid areas you don't necessarily need to use quite as much adhesive as in a dry area, because here your adhesive will dry up and your project will fall apart in a few months. So you'll always see me using my adhesive liberally. So there we go. Now one last thing we want to do is add a little bit of sparkle. So again, I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool, and I'm going to put some gems right here in the middle of the flower, just to give it a little bit of sparkle. Just like that. And there we have our Friendship is a Blessing card. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Remember to check out terryscraftroom.com for other tips and tricks and lots of other videos on tutorials on cards and other 3D projects. Have a wonderful day. Bye.